Billionaire CEO disguised as poor tried to humiliate single dad janitor. But fate made her fall in love. Before we begin, tell me something about where you live. What's the weather like today? The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the 63rd floor, but Madigan Foster didn't hear it. She stood in her corner office overlooking Manhattan, her reflection sharp and cold in the glass. Tailored Armani suit, diamond earrings that cost more than most people's cars, and eyes that had learned long ago not to show weakness. At 27, she was the youngest CEO of Foster Enterprises, a tech empire worth $3 billion. She'd clawed her way to the top, stepping over anyone who got in her way. "Ms. Foster, the quarterly reports are ready," her assistant Jennifer said from the doorway, her voice careful, measured. Everyone spoke to Madigan that way, with fear disguised as respect. "Leave them." Madigan didn't turn around. "And Jennifer, fire Marcus from accounting. He was 3 minutes late this morning." "But Ms. Foster, his daughter was—" "I don't care if his daughter was meeting the president. 3 minutes is 3 minutes." Madigan finally turned, her green eyes ice cold. "Weakness is contagious. Remove it before it spreads." Jennifer nodded and disappeared. Madigan returned to the window, watching the tiny people below scurrying like ants. That's all they were to her. Ants. Insignificant. Replaceable. Her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend since childhood, Victoria Chen, the only person who dared to be honest with her. "Lunch at the Carlyle? I have a proposal you'll find amusing." 20 minutes later, Madigan sat across from Victoria in a private dining room. Victoria was old money. Her family had been wealthy for generations, while Madigan had fought for every penny. That difference had always created an unspoken competition between them. "You look like you just fired someone," Victoria said, sipping her wine. "I did. Marcus from accounting. Tardiness is a disease." Victoria laughed, not warmly but with the sharp edge of someone who understood power. "That's why I love you, Maddie. You're ruthless. Speaking of which, I have a game for you." Madigan leaned back, intrigued. Victoria's games were always entertaining. "You know how we've been funding that literacy program at PS 116 in Queens?" Victoria continued. "Well, I met the most pathetic man there yesterday, Holden Pierce. He's a janitor at the school, 34 years old, single father, lives in some dump in Astoria. The man has nothing, Maddie. Nothing. And yet he walks around with this disgusting optimism like poverty is noble. Why are you telling me about some janitor? Because I want to make a wager." Victoria's eyes glittered. "I bet you couldn't last one day pretending to be poor. One day in his world. And I especially bet you couldn't make a fool of him. Show him what real power looks like even when disguised." Madigan felt a spark of interest. "What are the stakes?" "If you can do it, spend a day disguised as homeless, interact with this janitor, and prove that beneath all that good-hearted nonsense he's just as shallow as everyone else. I'll donate $5 million to any charity you choose. But if you can't, if you break character or if he somehow maintains his dignity despite your test, you donate $5 million to my family's foundation." "That's it?" Madigan smiled. "You're making this too easy, Vic. There's one more rule. You can't reveal who you are until the day is over. You have to fully commit to being poor, vulnerable, powerless. Can the great Madigan Foster handle being nobody?" The challenge ignited something in Madigan. Not compassion, but the predatory thrill of proving her superiority. "When do we start?" "Tomorrow. I'll have my stylist meet you at 6 a.m. We'll transform you into someone forgettable." The next morning, Madigan barely recognized herself. Her designer clothes were replaced with stained jeans, a threadbare coat, and sneakers with holes. Her sleek blonde hair was tangled and dirty. The makeup artist had added dark circles under her eyes and made her skin look sallow. She looked homeless, desperate, broken. "Perfect," Victoria said, circling her. "Now remember, Holden Pierce finishes his shift at PS 116 at 3 p.m. He usually walks home through Astoria Park. That's where you'll accidentally encounter him. Test his character, expose his hypocrisy, make him reveal that his kindness is just performance." Madigan studied herself in the mirror one last time. For a moment, something uncomfortable flickered in her chest. Was this too cruel? But she crushed the feeling immediately. Sentiment was weakness. By 2:30 p.m., Madigan was positioned on a bench in Astoria Park, shivering in the October cold. She'd refused Victoria's offer of actual warm clothing. She wanted the full experience, if only to mock it later. The park was nearly empty. Fallen leaves scattered across the paths, and the East River churned gray beyond the trees. Then she saw him, Holden Pierce was tall, maybe 6'2", with broad shoulders and the kind of build that came from actual work, not gym memberships. He wore a simple jacket and carried a worn backpack. His face was kind. Too kind, Madigan thought with contempt. Soft brown eyes, dark hair slightly messy, a gentle smile playing at his lips as he walked. And beside him, holding his hand, was a little girl. The child was 6 years old, with curly brown hair in 2 ponytails and bright, curious eyes. She wore a purple jacket and light-up sneakers, and she chattered constantly as they walked. "Daddy, can we get pizza tonight? Please? Mrs. Rodriguez said pizza has all the food groups if you get vegetables on it." Did she now? Holden's voice was warm, amused. "And I suppose Mrs. Rodriguez mentioned that pizza money and rent money sometimes have arguments about who's more important." The little girl, Holden's daughter, giggled. "You're silly, Daddy." They were getting closer to Madigan's bench. She made herself look smaller, more pitiful. She hunched her shoulders and let out a small, theatrical cough, but Holden walked past without noticing. Madigan felt a flash of anger. Wasn't his whole thing being kind to everyone? She stood up abruptly, took 3 steps, and then, calculating the exact moment, let herself collapse onto the pavement. She didn't have to fake the impact. The ground was hard, and pain shot through her shoulder and hip. For a second, she wondered if she'd made a mistake, but then she heard running footsteps. "Oh my God, Miss? Miss, are you okay?" Holden's voice was filled with genuine concern. Strong hands gently touched her shoulder. "Don't move. Let me help you. Emma, sweetie, step back and give her air." Madigan let her eyes flutter open. The first thing she saw was Holden's face hovering above her, his brown eyes filled with worry. Real worry. Not the calculated concern of business associates, but actual human caring. It was disarming. Madigan made her voice weak. "I'm sorry. I don't know what." "It's okay. You're okay. When did you last eat?" Holden was already shrugging off his jacket, laying it over her like a blanket. The jacket smelled like detergent and something else. Safety, if safety had a scent. I don't remember," Madigan whispered. Holden looked at his daughter. "Emma, get my backpack. Quick, sweetie." The little girl rushed over with the backpack, her small face pinched with concern. Holden pulled out a sandwich in a plastic bag, an apple, and a bottle of water. "Here, eat this slowly. Small bites." He opened the water bottle for her, his movements careful and practiced. "My name's Holden. This is my daughter Emma. What's your name?" Madigan hesitated. She'd planned to use a fake name, but something about the directness of his gaze made her mind blank. Maddie?" she stammered, using her childhood nickname. "Okay, Maddie. You're going to be okay. Just breathe." Emma knelt down beside her father, her 6-year-old face serious. "Daddy, is the lady sick?" "She's hungry, sweetheart. Sometimes when people don't eat, they get dizzy." "Then she should have our sandwich. We can share." Emma's voice was earnest, completely without guile. Holden smiled at his daughter, a smile so full of pride and love that Madigan felt something twist in her chest. "That's my girl, that's exactly right." Madigan took a small bite of the sandwich. It was peanut butter and jelly, cheap, simple, probably made that morning. But Holden watched her eat it with such relief that guilt flickered through her. She pushed it away. "Do you have somewhere to go?" Holden asked gently. "Family? Friends?" Madigan shook her head, committing to the role. "No one." "Daddy," Emma whispered loudly. "Can she come home with us?" "Emma!" Holden's voice was torn between parental caution and his daughter's innocent generosity. "Please, Daddy. She's like an angel who got lost. We have to help lost angels." An angel who got lost. The words hit Madigan like a physical blow. This child, this 6-year-old who had no idea she was speaking to one of the wealthiest women in New York, saw her as something worthy of saving, not as a transaction, not as a networking opportunity, but as a human being who needed help. And Holden was looking at her with those impossibly kind eyes, clearly wrestling with the decision. He was already planning how to help her. A complete stranger, someone who could offer him nothing. "I have a friend," Holden said slowly. "She runs a shelter 2 blocks from here, St. Catherine's. They have beds, food, medical help. I can walk you there if—" "No." The word came out sharper than Madigan intended. She softened it quickly. I just need a few minutes, then I'll be okay." Holden didn't look convinced, but he nodded. "All right, but take this." He pressed the rest of his sandwich into her hands, plus a $20 bill from his wallet. Madigan stared at the money. $20. For someone who made that amount every 3 seconds, it was nothing. But Holden had just given her probably a significant portion of his daily budget for a stranger, because it was the right thing to do. "I can't take this," she said, and for the first time, her voice wasn't acting. "Yes, you can. Pay it forward someday." Holden stood up, then helped her to her feet with surprising gentleness. "Are you sure you're steady?" Madigan nodded. She felt steady physically, but something else was very unstable inside her. Emma tugged her father's sleeve. "Daddy, what if she falls again when we're gone?" Holden hesitated, then made a decision. "Okay. New plan. Emma and I were heading home anyway. Our apartment is 10 minutes from here. Why don't you walk with us to the building? There's a cafe on the corner where you can sit, warm up, use the bathroom. No pressure. Just don't be alone right now." It was the exact opposite of what Madigan had planned. She was supposed to be testing him, exposing his selfishness, proving that his kindness was conditional. But here he was, extending his hand again and again, asking nothing in return. "Okay," Madigan heard herself say. "Thank you." They walked together through the park. Emma chattered between them, filling every silence with 6-year-old observations about clouds, dogs they passed, and whether angels had favorite colors. Holden listened to every word like it was the most important thing he'd ever heard. "Emma's in 1st grade, Holden explained. "She loves school, especially art class." "I'm going to be an artist when I grow up," Emma announced. "Or a veterinarian, or maybe both. Daddy says I can be anything." "That's right," Holden said firmly. "Work hard, be kind, and you can do anything." Madigan wanted to laugh at the naivety, but something stopped her. Maybe it was the way Emma looked at her father with complete faith. Maybe it was the way Holden's hand never left his daughter's, protective and gentle. They reached the cafe, a small corner place called Rosie's that looked like it hadn't been updated since 1985. Holden pulled out his wallet again. Madigan saw exactly one more $20 bill and someone's inside. "Get whatever you want," Holden said, handing her $10. "The soup is good, and Maddie, take care of yourself." Emma wrapped her small arms around Madigan's legs in an unexpected hug. "Bye, lost angel. I hope you find your way home." Then they were gone, father and daughter walking hand in hand down the street, Emma skipping beside Holden while he listened to her excited plans for Halloween costumes. Madigan stood frozen outside the cafe, the $10 crumpled in her hand. She should have felt victorious. She'd successfully infiltrated this man's life, gotten close enough to study him, to find his weaknesses, but instead, she felt hollow. She pulled out her phone and texted Victoria. Phase 1 complete. He bought it completely. Victoria's response was immediate. "Excellent. Now comes the fun part. Make him trust you, then destroy that trust. Show him that kindness is just stupidity by another name." Madigan put her phone away and stared at her reflection in the cafe window. In her homeless disguise, she looked lost, vulnerable, human. Emma's voice echoed in her mind. "She's like an angel who got lost." For the first time in years, Madigan Foster wondered if maybe she was the one who'd been lost all along. But the thought was dangerous, so she buried it. She had a game to win. Madigan didn't go into Rosie's cafe. Instead, she stood on the corner watching Holden and Emma disappear into a modest 5-story apartment building 2 blocks down. The building had faded red brick and fire escapes that looked like they'd been there since the 1960s. It was the kind of place Madigan would never have noticed in her real life. Beneath her consideration, invisible. She waited 15 minutes, then followed. The lobby smelled like old carpet and someone's cooking. Something with garlic and tomatoes. The mailboxes were dented and scratched. She scanned the names until she found it. H. Pierce, 3B. So simple. So ordinary. Her phone buzzed. Victoria again. "Don't lose momentum. You need to become indispensable to him. Make him need you, then pull the rug out." Madigan typed back, "Patience. Good manipulation takes time." But even as she sent the message, she felt the lie in it. Because standing in that shabby lobby, she wasn't thinking about manipulation. She was thinking about the way Holden had given her his last $20, the way Emma had called her a lost angel. She left the building and walked back toward Manhattan. By the time she reached her penthouse apartment on the Upper East Side, it was nearly 6 p.m. The doorman didn't recognize her in her homeless disguise and tried to stop her until she snapped, "It's me, Douglas, Halloween costume," and breezed past him. In her apartment, surrounded by marble countertops and abstract art that cost more than Holden probably made in a year, Madigan stripped off the costume. She stood under a scalding shower for 30 minutes. trying to wash away the feeling of Holden's jacket around her shoulders, the memory of Emma's small arms hugging her legs. She couldn't. That night, she barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Holden's face, that genuine concern, that reflexive kindness. She'd spent years in a world where every gesture was calculated, every smile had an agenda. But Holden had helped her because that's who he was. No angle, no ulterior motive. It was unsettling. The next morning, Madigan woke to sunlight streaming through her floor-to-ceiling windows and a text from Victoria. Brunch at Balthazar. Come tell me everything. An hour later, Madigan sat across from Victoria, who looked pristine in a cream-colored Chanel suit. Madigan had dressed back in her armor. Valentino dress, Louboutin heels, diamond bracelet that cost $60,000. Well? Victoria demanded. How was life as one of the little people? Madigan chose her words carefully. He's exactly what you said. Naive, trusting to a fault. He gave me money he clearly couldn't afford to give. See? Stupidity? Victoria bit into a croissant. These people think the world runs on good intentions. They have no concept of how power actually works. He has a daughter, Madigan said. 6 years old. Emma. And she's... Madigan struggled to articulate it. Innocent, completely unspoiled. She thinks people are fundamentally good. How tragic. Reality will crush that out of her soon enough. Victoria waved her hand dismissively. But let's focus on the game. What's your next move? I thought I'd... No, here's what you're going to do. Victoria interrupted. You're going to show up again. Soon. You're going to let him rescue you once more. Build the connection. Then you're going to reveal who you really are at the worst possible moment when he's most vulnerable, most invested. And we'll watch that naive optimism shatter into pieces. That's when you win. Madigan felt cold. That seems excessive. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Are you going soft, Maddie? Because yesterday you would have loved this plan. What changed? Nothing changed, Madigan lied. I'm just calculating the optimal strategy. The optimal strategy is to show these people what the real world is like. Holden Pierce lives in a fantasy where kindness matters more than money. You're going to give him a dose of reality. Madigan nodded, but the words felt like rocks in her stomach. She avoided Astoria Park for 3 days. She told herself it was strategy. Let Holden think about her, wonder if she was okay, create an emotional investment. But really, she was stalling. On the 4th day, Jennifer knocked on her office door. Ms. Foster, there's a situation with the PS 116 literacy program. What kind of situation? They're saying our funding will be cut if we don't show more direct involvement. They want a board member to visit the school, meet the staff, see the program firsthand. Mrs. Chen suggested you might. Victoria suggested this? Of course she did. Victoria was forcing her hand, accelerating the timeline. She said you'd be perfect for it since you're so passionate about education. Madigan almost laughed. Passionate, right. Fine. Schedule it for tomorrow afternoon. The next day, Madigan drove to PS 116 in her Mercedes, her designer sunglasses hiding her eyes. The school was old but well-maintained, with colorful murals on the walls and children's artwork in the windows. The principal, Mrs. Delgado, greeted her warmly. Ms. Foster, we're so honored. The literacy program has changed lives here. Let me show you around. They toured the school. Classrooms filled with kids from working-class families, teachers who clearly cared despite being underpaid, resources stretched thin, but spirits high. And then they reached the library where the literacy program met. Holden was there. He wore the same worn jeans and a simple navy blue t-shirt, pushing a cleaning cart down the hallway. When he saw the principal, he smiled and stepped aside politely. Afternoon, Mrs. Delgado. Holden. Perfect timing. This is Ms. Madigan Foster from Foster Enterprises. She's the CEO who funds our literacy program. Holden's eyes widened slightly as he looked at Madigan. She held her breath, waiting for recognition. But he just saw a wealthy woman in expensive clothes, someone from a completely different world than the homeless woman named Maddie he'd helped in the park. That's very generous, Holden said sincerely. The kids here really need programs like this, thank you. He had no idea. None. The costume had worked that well. It's an investment in the future, Madigan said, her CEO voice smooth and polished. Something flickered across Holden's face. Was it disappointment? Right. Investment, of course. Mrs. Delgado didn't notice the tension. Holden is one of our best staff members. He volunteers to run the after-school homework club twice a week even though he doesn't get paid extra. His own daughter Emma participates. That's admirable, Madigan said carefully. It's just being a good neighbor, Holden replied. His tone was respectful but distant, the way someone speaks to the wealthy and powerful when there's an unbridgeable gulf between worlds. Well, I should let you work, Madigan said. Holden nodded and continued pushing his cart down the hallway. As he walked away, Emma came bouncing out of a classroom, her backpack covered in unicorn stickers. Daddy, Mrs. Chen said we can make papier-mâché volcanoes next week. That's great, sweetheart. Holden lifted her up easily, settling her on his hip even though she was getting big for it. But remember, it's Mrs. Chang, not Chen. Oh, right. Emma's face turned serious. I gotta practice names better. Watching them together, Madigan felt that uncomfortable twist in her chest again. Holden wasn't looking at his daughter like she was a burden or an obligation. He was looking at her like she was his entire world. Ms. Foster? Mrs. Delgado prompted. Shall we continue the tour? Madigan nodded, but she kept glancing back at Holden and Emma until they disappeared around a corner. That evening, Madigan sat in her penthouse with a glass of wine she didn't drink. Victoria had texted 3 times asking for updates. Madigan had ignored all of them. Instead, she pulled up the background check her personal investigator had compiled on Holden Pierce. She'd ordered it the day after meeting him. Pure habit, the way she researched everyone who crossed her path. The file was thin, but telling. Holden Michael Pierce, 34 years old, born in Portland, Oregon, moved to New York at age 22. Married at 26 to Jessica Hartwell. Daughter Emma, born 1 year later. Wife died when Emma was 3 years old. Car accident, driver ran a red light. No criminal record. No debt beyond standard bills. Works as a janitor at PS 116. Salary $42,000 per year. Lives in rent-stabilized apartment in Astoria. No close family. Parents deceased. No siblings. Only known relative. Wife's mother, who died 2 years ago. Madigan set down the file. Holden had lost his wife when Emma was only 3. He'd been a widower for 3 years, raising a daughter alone on a janitor's salary in one of the most expensive cities in the world, and he'd still given $20 to a homeless stranger. Her phone rang. Victoria, why aren't you answering my texts? I'm thinking, Madigan said. About what? The plan is simple. Go back as Maddie, make him care about you, then reveal everything and watch him crumble. Or are you chickening out? I'm not chickening out. Then what's the problem? The problem was that Madigan had spent her whole life believing people were fundamentally selfish. That kindness was just manipulation, with better marketing. That the only thing that mattered was power. But Holden Pierce didn't fit that worldview, and it was destabilizing everything. I'll handle it, Madigan said. Trust me. I'm starting to think I shouldn't, Victoria replied. But fine. You have 1 week. Make your move or forfeit the bet. 1 week. Madigan spent the next 2 days in her office, barely eating, snapping at her staff. Jennifer asked if she was feeling well. Madigan fired her, then immediately rehired her 10 minutes later when she realized how irrational she was being. I'm sorry, Madigan said, and the words felt foreign in her mouth. That was wrong. Jennifer stared. Did you just apologize? Don't make a thing of it. But it was a thing. Madigan was changing and she didn't understand why or how to stop it. On the 6th day, she put the homeless costume back on. She stood in front of her mirror, looking at the transformation. Designer CEO to desperate vagrant. 2 versions of herself. Which one was real? She went back to Astoria Park. It was late afternoon, the October air crisp and cold. Madigan sat on the same bench where she'd collapsed before. She waited. An hour passed. 2. Her hands went numb from the cold. She was about to give up when she saw them, Holden and Emma, walking through the park just like before, holding hands. Emma spotted her first. Daddy, Daddy, it's the lost angel. She came back. Holden's head snapped up. His face went through a series of emotions, surprise, concern, relief, and then he was jogging toward her, Emma running beside him. Maddie, is that you? Holden stopped in front of her, slightly breathless. I was worried. Are you okay? Have you been safe? Emma crashed into Madigan with a hug before she could answer. You didn't disappear. I told Daddy you wouldn't. Angels don't just disappear. Madigan's throat felt tight. She'd planned what to say, how to manipulate the situation to her advantage. But with Emma's small arms around her and Holden's genuinely worried face, all the words evaporated. She swallowed. I'm okay. I've been staying at the shelter you mentioned. St. Catherine's. It was a lie. She'd never set foot in the shelter. But Holden's face relaxed with relief. Good, that's really good. Sister Margaret runs that place. She's tough but fair. Are they treating you well? Yes. Madigan lied again. But they can only let people stay for 30 days. I'm trying to find work, but she let the sentence trail off. Holden's expression turned thoughtful. What kind of work did you do? Before you became homeless was the unspoken end of that sentence. Retail, Madigan improvised. Office work. Nothing special. Can you use a computer? Basic stuff. Email, spreadsheets? Yes. Because Mrs. Delgado, the principal at PS 116 where I work, her assistant just quit. She needs someone to help with filing, answering phones, scheduling. It's temporary, maybe a month or two. Doesn't pay much, but it's something. I could put in a word for you if you want. Madigan stared at him. He was trying to get her a job. This man who had nothing was trying to help her, a stranger, get back on her feet. Why would you do that? The question came out more raw than she intended. Holden looked surprised by the question. Because everybody needs help sometimes. And if I can help, why wouldn't I? Most people wouldn't. Then most people are missing out. He said it so simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Look, I can't promise Mrs. Delgado will hire you, but I can introduce you. Tomorrow morning, maybe? Do you have clothes for an interview? Madigan shook her head. Okay. Holden thought for a moment. Emma and I are heading home right now. There's a thrift store 3 blocks from our place. Second Chances. They give away free clothes to people in need. We can stop there on the way, get you something professional for the interview. This was escalating too fast. Madigan needed to slow down, think, strategize. But Emma was pulling on her hand. Come on, lost angel. Let's get you pretty clothes. Then you can have dinner with us. Emma, Holden said gently. We talked about inviting people over without asking Daddy first. But Daddy, she's hungry, I can tell. And we're having spaghetti and meatballs. We always make too much. Holden looked at Madigan, apologetic but hopeful. You don't have to. I know Emma can be a lot. But, if you want to, you'd be welcome. Madigan should have said no. This was supposed to be a controlled experiment, not whatever this was becoming. But Emma was looking at her with those bright, trusting eyes, and Holden was looking at her like she mattered. And, okay, Madigan heard herself say, thank you. Emma cheered and grabbed Madigan's hand, swinging it as they walked. Holden fell into step on her other side, telling Emma to be careful to not pull too hard. They stopped at Second Chances, a small thrift store run by an elderly woman named Mrs. Patterson who called everyone dear. Emma helped pick out clothes. A simple navy blazer, a white blouse, dress pants that actually fit. Mrs. Patterson threw in a pair of barely worn flats for free. You take care now, dear, Mrs. Patterson said warmly. And good luck with that interview. Then they walked to Holden's building. The same faded brick, the same worn lobby. They climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. Holden explained the elevator had been broken for 2 months, and he unlocked the door to apartment 3B. Madigan stepped inside and stopped. The apartment was tiny, maybe 600 square feet total, but it was clean. Spotless, actually. The furniture was old but well-maintained. Crayon drawings covered the refrigerator. A bookshelf overflowed with children's books. Through a doorway she could see 2 bedrooms, one clearly Holden's, the other painted purple with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. This was where they lived. A janitor and his 6-year-old daughter in a rent-stabilized apartment that cost them probably half his salary. And somehow, it felt more like a home than Madigan's $5 million penthouse. Emma immediately started showing Madigan her toys. Stuffed animals, art supplies, a dollhouse that looked handmade. Holden disappeared into the kitchen. Soon smells of garlic and tomato sauce filled the apartment. Daddy makes the best spaghetti, Emma announced. He uses Grandma Jessica's recipe. That was my mommy. She's in heaven now. I'm sorry, Madigan said, and meant it. It's okay. Daddy says Mommy watches us from heaven and that's why we should always be good people. So she's proud of us. Holden appeared in the doorway, wiping his hands on a dish towel. Emma, why don't you wash your hands? Dinner's almost ready. Emma skipped off. Holden sat down beside Madigan on the worn couch. She doesn't remember Jessica much, he said quietly. She was only 3 when the accident happened. Sometimes I wonder if that's better or worse. He shook his head. Sorry. Too heavy. No, Madigan said. It's not. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Holden said, Can I ask you something? You don't have to answer. Madigan tensed. Okay. What happened? To get you here? You seem I don't know. Like you're educated. Like you had a different life before. Madigan's mind raced. She needed a backstory that was believable but wouldn't invite too many questions. I had a good job once. Finance. But I made some bad choices. Trusted the wrong person. Lost everything. The lies came easily. She'd spent years lying in boardrooms. No family to fall back on. It happens faster than you think. Holden nodded slowly. It shouldn't be that way. One mistake, one bad break, and the whole system just abandons people. That's not right. The system doesn't care about right and wrong. It cares about winners and losers. Maybe, but people should care. We should care. He met her eyes directly. I care. Madigan felt something crack inside her chest. She turned away, pretending to look at Emma's drawings on the wall. You barely know me. I know you're trying. I know you showed up at that park again instead of giving up. That takes courage. Courage. When was the last time anyone had called her courageous? People called her ruthless, brilliant, cold, successful. But courage. That implied she was fighting for something that mattered. Emma burst back into the room. Hands are clean. Can we eat now? Dinner was simple. Spaghetti with meatballs, garlic bread from the grocery store, and a salad. Emma insisted Madigan sit between her and Holden at their small kitchen table. They said grace before eating, something Madigan hadn't done since she was a child. Thank you for this food and for bringing new friends to our table. Amen. Emma dug in enthusiastically, getting sauce on her chin. Holden wiped it away with his napkin, patient and practiced. They talked about Emma's day at school, how she'd gotten a gold star for her spelling test, how her friend Marcus had brought a cool rock for show and tell, how Mrs. Chang had promised they'd start learning about dinosaurs next week. It was ordinary. Completely, utterly ordinary. And Madigan couldn't remember the last time she'd felt this. Peaceful. After dinner, Holden insisted on washing the dishes while Emma showed Madigan her room. The purple walls were covered with Emma's artwork. Crayon drawings of rainbows, stick figure families, houses with smiling suns overhead. This is me and Daddy. Emma pointed to one drawing. And this is Mommy in heaven. And these are all the people we help. The drawing showed dozens of stick figures holding hands in a circle around the family. You help a lot of people? Madigan asked. Daddy says everybody needs help sometimes, so we share when we can. Like last week we gave our extra blankets to Mr. Chen downstairs 'cause his heater broke, and Daddy helps Mrs. Rodriguez carry groceries every Thursday, and I share my snacks at school with kids who forget theirs. 6 years old, and Emma already understood something Madigan had forgotten, that being human meant helping each other. You're a good kid, Emma. Emma beamed. Daddy says being good is more important than being rich. Do you think that's true? The question was so innocent, so direct. It took Madigan's breath away. Here was this child, living in a tiny apartment with second-hand furniture, asking if being good was more important than being rich. And she believed it was. I think, Madigan chose her words carefully, I think your daddy is a very smart man. The smartest, Emma agreed. Then she yawned hugely. Holden appeared in the doorway. Bedtime, Munchkin. Say goodnight to Maddie. Emma hugged Madigan tightly. Will you come back, please? Madigan looked at Holden, who smiled gently. No pressure. But you're always welcome here. Then yes, Madigan heard herself say. I'll come back. Emma cheered, then let Holden lead her through the bedtime routine, brushing teeth, changing into pajamas, picking out a book. Madigan heard their voices through the thin walls as Holden read Emma a story about a brave little mouse. Emma's questions interrupted every few sentences, and Holden answered each one patiently. 20 minutes later, Holden emerged, closing Emma's door softly behind him. She's out. That kid sleeps like the dead once she's down. He smiled. Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee? I should probably go, Madigan said, even though she didn't want to. Let me at least call you a cab. No. The word came out too sharp. Madigan softened it. I mean, I'm fine. The shelter isn't far. Then let me walk you. It's dark out. Holden, you've already done so much. 5 minutes, come on. He grabbed his jacket and a flashlight, then led her downstairs and into the night. Astoria was quieter now, streetlights casting yellow pools on the sidewalk. They walked in comfortable silence for a block before Holden spoke. I meant what I said about the job. I'll talk to Mrs. Delgado first thing tomorrow morning. If you can be at the school by 10, I'll introduce you. Why are you doing this? Madigan asked again. Really? Holden stopped walking. In the streetlight, his face was thoughtful, vulnerable. 3 years ago, when Jessica died, I fell apart. Completely. I couldn't get out of bed. Couldn't take care of Emma. Couldn't function. And you know what saved me? Strangers. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, the one Emma mentioned, she showed up every morning with breakfast. Made sure Emma got to school. The principal at PS 116 gave me time off. Paid. The people at my church brought casseroles every night for 2 months straight. They didn't have to. They just did. Because that's what humans are supposed to do for each other. His voice was thick with emotion. So when I see someone who needs help, I don't think about it. I just help. Because somebody helped me when I needed it. And maybe someday Emma will need help. And I want to live in a world where people show up for her the way people showed up for us. Madigan felt tears burning behind her eyes. Actual tears, something she hadn't experienced in years. I don't know if the world works that way. It does if we make it work that way. They reached the corner of St. Catherine's. The shelter was an old church building with lights in the windows. A few people stood outside smoking, talking in low voices. "This is me," Madigan said. "Okay, 10 a.m. tomorrow, PS 116. I'll be waiting in the main office. Holden." Madigan struggled to find words. "Thank you for everything." He smiled, that genuine warm smile that made her chest ache. "See you tomorrow, Maddie." He waited until she'd walked into the shelter before turning back. Madigan stood in the doorway, watching him disappear into the darkness. Then she slipped back out a side door, hailed a cab, and went back to her penthouse. She showered again, scrubbing away the costume, the lies, the pretense. But she couldn't scrub away the memory of dinner at that tiny table, Emma's laughter, Holden's kindness. Her phone showed 7 missed calls from Victoria. Madigan ignored them. Instead, she stood at her window, looking out over Manhattan. From up here, people were just dots of light, insignificant and distant. But down there, in a rent-stabilized apartment in Astoria, a janitor and his 6-year-old daughter were probably asleep, dreaming ordinary dreams. And for the first time in her life, Madigan wondered if she'd been looking at the world from the wrong angle all along. Her phone rang. "Victoria, where have you been? I've been calling for hours." "I was busy." "Doing what? Please tell me you're not backing out of this." Madigan looked at her reflection in the window. Designer pajamas, perfect hair, flawless skin, empty eyes. "I'm not backing out," she said quietly. "I'm seeing it through." "Good, because I've already told everyone about our bet. You can't embarrass me now." "I won't." "So what's next? When do you reveal yourself?" Madigan closed her eyes. "Soon. I just need a little more time. Don't get soft on me, Maddie. Remember who you are." That was the problem. Madigan was starting to forget who she was. Or maybe she was starting to remember who she used to be, before the ambition and the money and the need to win consumed everything else. She hung up without saying goodbye. That night she dreamed of stick figures holding hands in a circle, and a 6-year-old voice calling her a lost angel. Madigan woke at 5 a.m., heart pounding. She'd been dreaming about the interview, walking into PS 116 as Maddie, while her real self watched from the corner, disgusted by the charade. She made coffee and stood at her window, watching the city wake up. In a few hours, she'd have to put the costume back on, become Maddie again, get closer to Holden. And then what? Victoria's plan was clear. Gain his trust, reveal the truth at the most devastating moment possible, and watch his faith in human goodness shatter. Prove that everyone has a breaking point. Prove that kindness is just naivety, waiting to be punished. But Madigan's hands shook as she held her coffee cup. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Good morning, it's Holden. Got your number from the shelter directory. Mrs. Delgado said she can meet you at 10. Good luck. H." He'd followed through. Of course he had. Madigan typed back, "Thank you, I'll be there." 3 hours later, dressed in her homeless costume and the thrift store interview clothes, Madigan walked into PS 116. The morning chaos of elementary school surrounded her. Kids running, teachers herding them to classrooms, the smell of cafeteria breakfast, bulletin boards covered in bright construction paper. Holden was waiting in the main office just like he'd promised. When he saw her, his whole face lit up. "Maddie, you made it. Come on. Mrs. Delgado is excited to meet you." He led her to the principal's office. Mrs. Delgado was a woman in her mid-50s with kind eyes and graying hair, pulled back in a practical bun. She gestured for Madigan to sit. "Holden speaks very highly of you," Mrs. Delgado began. "He says you're hardworking and honest." "He barely knows me," Madigan said before she could stop herself. Mrs. Delgado smiled. "Holden is an excellent judge of character. In 5 years, he's never been wrong about a person. So tell me about yourself. Madigan repeated her lies, the finance job, the bad choices, the fall from grace. She kept it vague enough to be believable, but detailed enough to seem real. Mrs. Delgado listened carefully. The position is temporary. 6 weeks, maybe 8. My regular assistant is on maternity leave. It's basic office work. Filing, phones, scheduling, ordering supplies. 20 hours a week at $16 an hour. Not much, but it's perfect, Madigan interrupted. When can I start? Eager. I like that. Mrs. Delgado pulled out some papers. Monday morning, 8 a.m. We'll need some information for payroll. Social security number, emergency contact, that sort of thing. Can you provide that? Madigan's mind raced. She'd need to create false documents. My papers were stolen, along with my ID. I'm working on getting replacements, but that's all right, Mrs. Delgado said gently. We can pay you as an independent contractor until you get your documentation sorted. It's fine. We've worked with people in transition before. People in transition, a kind euphemism for people who'd lost everything. Thank you, Madigan said, and meant it. After the interview, Holden walked her back to the main entrance. Students were in class now, the hallways quieter. You got the job, he said, grinning. I knew you would. You set this up for me. You barely know me and you gave you a chance. That's all anyone needs sometimes. A chance. He checked his watch. I've got to get back to work, but hey, Saturday is Emma's birthday. We're having a small party at the apartment. Just a few of her friends from school, cake, some games. Would you want to come? Emma would love it. Madigan should have said no. This was getting too personal, too real, too close. But Holden was looking at her with such genuine warmth, such uncomplicated kindness, that the refusal died in her throat. I'd like that. Great. 2 p.m. on Saturday. And Maddie? Don't worry about bringing a gift, just bring yourself. After he left, Madigan stood in the lobby for a long moment. Through the window, she could see Emma's first-grade classroom. The little girl was bent over her desk, tongue poking out in concentration as she wrote something. Madigan's phone rang. Victoria. Tell me you got the job. I did. Perfect. Now you're embedded. You can really dig into his life, find his weaknesses, his fears, and when you reveal everything. Victoria, I need to ask you something. Madigan cut her off. Why do you hate him so much? You've never even met him. Silence. Then, I don't hate him. I just think he's a fool. Why? Because people like him think the world runs on good intentions. They think if you're just nice enough, kind enough, generous enough, everything works out. It's childish, and someone needs to teach him that reality doesn't care about his feelings. What if he's right? Madigan asked quietly. What if kindness does matter? Oh my God, you're falling for this act, aren't you? Victoria's voice went cold. He's not special, Maddie. He's just broke and desperate like everyone else. The only difference is he's good at pretending otherwise. What if it's not pretending? Then you prove it is. That's the whole point of the bet. You show that underneath the saint routine he's just as selfish as everyone else. Or are you forfeiting? I'm not forfeiting. Then stop questioning and start executing. I'll be checking in. Victoria hung up. Madigan left the school and walked aimlessly through Astoria. The neighborhood was different from Manhattan. Small shops instead of designer boutiques. People who made eye contact and said hello, a slower pace. She passed a park where mothers pushed strollers and old men played chess. This was Holden's world. Not glamorous, not powerful, but somehow real. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Jennifer at the office. Ms. Foster, the Tokyo investors are demanding a meeting this week. Where are you? Reality crashed back. Madigan had a company to run, deals to close, millions of dollars in play. She couldn't just disappear into this fantasy of being a homeless woman, befriended by a kind janitor. She texted back, schedule it for Friday afternoon, I'll be there. That gave her 4 days to figure out what she was doing. The weekend came faster than she expected. Madigan spent Friday at her office being the CEO again. Sharp, decisive, cold. She closed a merger worth $40 million before lunch. She fired a department head who'd missed quarterly targets. She was Madigan Foster, and Madigan Foster didn't have time for sentiment. But Saturday morning, she put the costume back on. She bought a birthday gift for Emma, a art supply set from a toy store, nothing too expensive that would raise questions. She wrapped it in cheerful paper covered in unicorns and rainbows. At 2 p.m., she knocked on the door of apartment 3B. Holden opened it wearing a party hat. Maddie, You came. Come in. Come in. The small apartment was transformed. Streamers hung from the ceiling. Balloons clustered in corners. A handmade banner read, "Happy 7th birthday, Emma," in rainbow letters. 6 children ran around shrieking and laughing. Emma stood in the middle wearing a purple dress and a sparkly crown, looking like the happiest kid in the world. "Lost Angel!" Emma rushed over and hugged Madigan. "You came to my birthday." "I wouldn't miss it," Madigan said, handing her the gift. Emma's eyes went wide. "For me? Really?" She tore off the paper and gasped at the art supplies. "Daddy, look, it's the big set with the oil pastels." "Thank you, thank you, thank you." "You're very welcome," Madigan said, her throat tight. The party was chaos. Musical chairs, pin the tail on the donkey, a piñata shaped like a unicorn. Holden managed everything with practiced ease, making sure every kid felt included, mediating disputes over toys, wiping up spilled juice without complaint. The other parents who'd stayed chatted with Madigan, assuming she was a family friend. She learned that Holden did this kind of thing often, organizing events, helping neighbors, fixing broken things in the building for free. Everyone spoke about him with genuine affection. "He's one of the good ones," said Mrs. Chen, the neighbor from downstairs. "When my husband was in the hospital last year, Holden brought Emma over every evening to keep me company. Wouldn't take no for an answer." "That's just who he is," added another neighbor, Mr. Williams. "Heart of gold." Madigan watched Holden help Emma blow out her candles. 7 rainbow candles on a homemade chocolate cake. Emma made a wish, then turned to Madigan. "I wish that you'd find your home, and that you'd be happy." The words hit Madigan like a physical blow. This child, on her own birthday, had used her wish on someone else. After cake, after presents, after the other kids had been picked up by their parents, the apartment finally quieted. Emma, exhausted and happy, curled up on the couch with her new art supplies, drawing. Holden and Madigan cleaned up together, picking up torn wrapping paper, wiping down surfaces, putting leftover cake in the fridge. "Thank you for coming," Holden said. "It meant a lot to Emma, to both of us. She's an amazing kid." "She is." Holden's voice was soft with love. "Sometimes I can't believe she's mine, like I won some kind of cosmic lottery." "You're a good father." "I try. It's not always easy. Money's tight, time is tighter, but Emma never complains. He gestured to where Emma was humming to herself, creating colorful swirls on paper. "She just sees the world as this beautiful place full of possibilities. I don't want her to lose that. The world isn't always beautiful," Madigan said quietly. "No, but it can be, if we work at it, if we choose kindness over cruelty, hope over cynicism." He looked at her directly. "You don't believe that, do you?" Madigan was caught off guard by his perceptiveness. "I want to." "That's a start." Emma appeared beside them, holding up her drawing. "Look, it's you, Maddie." The drawing showed a figure with yellow hair and a big smile, surrounded by flowers and stars. In the corner, in careful first-grade handwriting, Emma had written, "My friend Maddie. She is nice." Madigan took the drawing with shaking hands. "It's beautiful, Emma, thank you. You can keep it. To remember you have friends now." Friends. This 6-year-old considered her a friend. Not because of what she could offer, not because of connections or money or power, just because. "I should go," Madigan said, her voice unsteady. "Let Emma rest." "Yeah, she's gonna crash soon. Birthday excitement always wipes her out." Holden walked Madigan to the door. "Hey, Maddie, I know Monday is your first day at school. If you need anything, help navigating the computer system, understanding the filing, whatever, just ask. I'm around." "Thank you." "And Maddie, I'm really glad you're here. In Astoria, I mean. I know things have been hard for you, but I think you're going to be okay. You're stronger than you think." Madigan nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She left quickly, Emma's drawing clutched in her hand. Outside, she walked 3 blocks before allowing herself to cry. Real tears, the kind that came from somewhere deep and painful. She sat on a bus stop bench and sobbed into her hands, makeup running, carefully constructed walls crumbling. What was she doing? She'd come here to prove that Holden was a fraud, that his kindness was an act, that deep down everyone was selfish. But instead she'd found a man who was exactly what he appeared to be. Good, genuinely, uncomplicatedly good. And his daughter had wished for Madigan's happiness on her own birthday. Madigan's phone rang. "Victoria, how was the birthday party? How did you—" "I have my sources." "So, did you make progress? Get closer to them?" Madigan looked at the drawing in her hands. Emma's careful lettering. My friend Maddie. Yes, she whispered. I got closer. Good, because next week I want you to start phase 2. Make him depend on you emotionally, then we shatter him. Victoria, no backing out now, Maddie. We have a bet. And more importantly, we have a point to prove. These people need to learn that the world doesn't reward kindness. It rewards power. You're doing him a favor, really. Teaching him before life does it more cruelly. The words sounded hollow. Or maybe Madigan was just hearing them differently now. I'll handle it, she said. You better. Because if you don't, I will. And I won't be as gentle as you. Victoria hung up. Madigan sat on that bench for another hour, watching the sun set over Astoria. Families walked past, parents and children, holding hands, laughing, living their ordinary lives. Finally, she stood up. She carefully folded Emma's drawing and put it in her pocket. Then she hailed a cab back to Manhattan. In her penthouse, she took off the costume and stood in the shower until the water ran cold. But she couldn't wash away the feeling of Emma's small arms hugging her, or Holden's words. You're stronger than you think. Monday morning came too soon. Madigan reported to PS 116 as Maddie, ready to start her new job as the principal's temporary assistant. Mrs. Delgado showed her the filing system, the phone directory, the supply closet. The work was simple, mindless. Nothing like running a billion-dollar company. But it was also strangely peaceful. During lunch, Holden brought her a sandwich from the deli down the street. Figured you might not have had time to pack anything. You didn't have to. I wanted to. Turkey and Swiss, extra pickles. If you don't like pickles, I can get you something else. It's perfect, thank you. They ate together in the teacher's lounge. Holden told her about his morning. A kindergartner had gotten sick in the hallway. The boiler was making weird noises again. Emma was excited because they were starting a unit on ocean animals. She wants to be a marine biologist now, Holden said with a smile. Last week it was astronaut. Next week it'll probably be something else. But I love that she dreams big. Do you think she'll actually become any of those things? Madigan asked. Does it matter? The point isn't what she becomes. The point is that she believes she can become anything. That's the gift I want to give her. The belief that she's capable of amazing things. Even though you can't afford, Madigan stopped herself. Can't afford to send her to expensive schools? Can't afford tutors and enrichment programs and all the things rich kids get? Holden's voice was gentle, not defensive. No, I can't. But I can teach her to work hard, to be kind, to never stop learning. Those things matter more than money. Do they? Yes. He said it with absolute certainty. Money helps, sure, but it doesn't make you who you are. Emma could grow up in a mansion and be miserable, or in our tiny apartment and be happy. It's about what we value, what we teach, what we choose to prioritize. Madigan wanted to argue. She wanted to tell him he was naive, that money did matter, that the world was harsh and unforgiving to people without it. But she thought about her own penthouse. Massive, expensive, empty. Then she thought about Holden's apartment. Tiny, modest, filled with love. Maybe you're right, she said quietly. Holden smiled. Was that Maddie agreeing with me? Should I mark this day on the calendar? She laughed, actually laughed, and realized it was the first time she'd laughed genuinely in months. The rest of the week passed in a strange double life. By day, Madigan was Maddie, the grateful homeless woman working at PS 116 eating lunch with Holden, helping Emma with her homework after school. By night, she was Madigan Foster, closing deals, reviewing contracts, maintaining her empire. The two lives felt increasingly incompatible. Friday night, Victoria called. Status update. Now. I'm working on it. It's been 2 weeks, Maddie. 2 weeks of you playing poor. When are you going to make your move? Soon. That's what you said last time. I'm starting to think you're enjoying this little fantasy, playing house with the janitor and his kid. I'm not. Then prove it. Next week I want results. Make him fall for you. Then crush him. Or I'm calling off the bet and telling everyone you chickened out. I'm not chickening out. Then show me. Victoria's voice turned sharp. Or maybe I'll come to PS 116 myself. Meet this saint who has you so twisted up. Remind him, and you, what reality looks like. The threat was clear. Victoria would expose everything if Madigan didn't act soon. Give me 1 more week, Madigan said. Then I'll end it. 1 week. That's all you get. After hanging up, Madigan stood at her window, looking at the city lights. Somewhere out there in Astoria, Holden was probably reading Emma a bedtime story. Emma was probably asking a million questions. They were probably happy. And Madigan was about to destroy all of that to win a bet. She pulled Emma's drawing from her desk drawer. She'd kept it, unable to throw it away. My friend Maddie. She is nice. But Maddie wasn't real. Maddie was a lie. A costume, a game. And when the truth came out, Emma would learn that the lost angel she'd believed in was actually a monster. Madigan's phone buzzed. A text from Holden. Emma wanted me to say goodnight to you. She's praying you have sweet dreams. We both are. Sleep well, Maddie. Madigan stared at the message until her vision blurred. She had 1 week to decide who she really was. Madigan Foster, ruthless CEO who crushed people for sport, or Maddie, the lost woman who'd found something she didn't know she was looking for. The problem was, she was starting to realize that maybe Madigan Foster was the real costume. And Maddie, broken, vulnerable, honest Maddie, might be who she'd been all along, buried under years of ambition and cruelty. But it was too late to turn back now. The wheels were already in motion. Victoria was watching. The bet was on. And next week, everything would come crashing down. Madigan turned off the lights and went to bed, Emma's words echoing in her mind. I wished that you'd find your home. The terrible truth was, she already had, and she was about to lose it forever. Monday morning arrived with storm clouds gathering over Astoria. Madigan worked at PS 116, filing papers and answering phones, when Holden appeared at her desk during lunch. Hey, you okay? You seem distant today, he said, concern etching his features. Just tired, Madigan lied, but her hands trembled as she organized folders. Emma keeps asking when you'll come over again. She made you another drawing. He pulled out a folded paper, this time showing 3 stick figures holding hands. That's supposed to be us. A family, she says. The word family pierced Madigan's heart. Holden, I need to tell you something. Her phone buzzed. Victoria. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., I'm coming to the school. Time's up. Panic flooded through her. I have to go. I'm sorry. She grabbed her coat and rushed out, leaving Holden standing confused in the office. That night, Madigan paced her penthouse. She had less than 24 hours before Victoria arrived and destroyed everything. She could warn Holden, confess the truth herself, or disappear and never return. But Emma's drawing sat on her coffee table. 3 stick figures. A family. She picked up her phone and texted Holden. Can we meet tomorrow morning, before school? I need to talk to you. It's important. His reply came immediately. Of course. 7 a.m. at the park? Whatever you need, Maddie. I'm here. Madigan closed her eyes. She'd made her decision. She would tell him everything herself. Before Victoria could weaponize the truth, she would face the consequences of her cruelty, even if it meant losing the only real thing she'd ever had. Tuesday morning, 7 a.m., Madigan sat on the park bench where this had all begun, wearing her regular clothes for the first time. No costume, no disguise. Just herself. Holden arrived right on time, Emma's hand in his. When he saw Madigan, his smile faltered. Maddie, you look different. Did something happen? Sit down, please. Both of you. Her voice shook. Emma climbed onto the bench, swinging her legs. Are you okay, Lost Angel? You sound sad. Emma, I need to tell you both something. Something that's going to hurt. Madigan's eyes filled with tears. My name isn't Maddie. It's Madigan. Madigan Foster. Holden's brow furrowed. I don't understand. I'm the CEO you met at the school 2 weeks ago. The one in the expensive suit. She watched comprehension dawn on his face. Watched the confusion turn to shock. I was never homeless. I was never lost. It was all a lie. What? Holden's voice was barely a whisper. My friend Victoria made a bet with me. She bet I couldn't pretend to be poor for a day and prove that your kindness was fake. That you were just performing goodness. The words tumbled out, each one a knife. I was supposed to humiliate you to show that everyone is selfish underneath. Holden stood abruptly, pulling Emma close. You lied? About everything? Not about everything, Madigan pleaded. Not about how I feel now. Not about caring about you and Emma. Caring? Holden's laugh was bitter and broken. You made a game out of our lives. You let Emma believe you were her friend. Emma looked between them, confused. Daddy? What's happening? We need to go, sweetheart. Holden picked Emma up, even though she was getting too big for it. Wait, please. Madigan reached for him. I know I can't fix this, but I'm so sorry. You changed me, both of you. I came here thinking I knew everything about people, and you showed me I knew nothing about what really matters. Stop. Holden's voice was cold, unfamiliar. Just stop. You want forgiveness? Absolution? You won't get it from me. What you did, using a child's innocence, exploiting my trust, that's not something sorry can fix. He walked away, Emma crying on his shoulder, asking why the lost angel was making Daddy upset. Madigan collapsed onto the bench, sobbing. She'd told the truth, but too late. The damage was done. Her phone rang. Victoria. I'm at the school, where are you? Wait, did you already tell him? Victoria laughed. Oh, Maddie, you actually developed a conscience. How disappointing. I lost, Victoria, you win, take your 5 million. No, Victoria said coldly. You forfeited. That means you owe me 10 million, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you did. Every newspaper, every social media platform. Billionaire CEO torments single father and child for sport. Your reputation will be destroyed. I don't care anymore. You will. Victoria hung up. Madigan sat alone in the park as rain began to fall, washing away any trace of the woman she'd been trying to become. 3 weeks passed. True to her word, Victoria leaked the story. It went viral. Heartless CEO's cruel bet exposed. The board demanded Madigan's resignation. Protesters gathered outside Foster Enterprises. Her face was everywhere, labeled a monster. Madigan didn't fight it. She stepped down as CEO, donated 50 million to homeless shelters across New York, and disappeared from public life. She'd moved to a small apartment in Brooklyn. Nothing like her penthouse, nothing like Holden's place either. Just anonymous space where she could think. Late one evening, her doorbell rang. She opened it to find Mrs. Delgado from PS 116. May I come in? They sat in Madigan's sparse living room. Mrs. Delgado studied her carefully. Holden told me everything. I was angry, furious actually. But then I watched what you did after. The resignation, the donations, the silence. It doesn't fix anything. No, but it's a start. Mrs. Delgado handed her an envelope. This is from Emma. Holden doesn't know she wrote it. She made me promise to deliver it. With shaking hands, Madigan opened the envelope. Inside was a drawing, an angel with broken wings sitting alone. Below it, in Emma's careful handwriting, Dear lost angel, Daddy says you hurt us. I'm sad, but I still pray for you every night, because even angels make mistakes. Love, Emma. Madigan broke down completely. This child, this beautiful, pure-hearted child she'd betrayed, was still praying for her. What do I do? She whispered. You live differently. You become who you were pretending to be. Not for them, for yourself. Real change takes time, Madigan. Years. Maybe forever. But if you mean it, if you really want to be better, you start now and you never stop. Mrs. Delgado left. Madigan sat with Emma's drawing for hours. The next morning she made calls. She sold her remaining shares in Foster Enterprises and created a foundation, the Emma Pierce Foundation for Working Families. She funded childcare programs, paid for education initiatives, created scholarships for children of single parents. She didn't contact Holden or Emma. She didn't seek their forgiveness or gratitude. She simply worked, quietly, to help people like them. Months became a year. Madigan volunteered at St. Catherine's Shelter, the one Holden had recommended that first day. She served meals, organized donations, listened to people's stories. She learned their names, their struggles, their dreams. She was learning how to be human. One Saturday afternoon, she was organizing donations when she heard a familiar voice. Excuse me, do you know where the children's coat section is? She turned. Holden stood there, Emma beside him. He recognized her instantly. They stared at each other for a long moment. The coats are in the back, Madigan said softly. Left corner. Thank you. He started to walk away, then stopped. Turned back. Mrs. Delgado told me about the foundation, about what you've been doing. It's not enough. It'll never be enough. No, Holden agreed. But it's something. Emma tugged his sleeve. Daddy, is that? Yes, sweetheart. Emma looked at Madigan with those bright, impossibly kind eyes. Your wings look better now. Madigan's breath caught. What? Your angel wings. In my dream, they were broken, but now they look like they're growing back. Tears streamed down Madigan's face. Thank you, Emma, for everything, for teaching me what I didn't know I needed to learn. Holden's expression softened. Not forgiveness exactly, but not hatred either. Something more complex. Understanding, maybe. Acknowledgement that people can change even if the past can't be erased. Come on, Em. Let's find those coats. As they walked away, Emma turned back one more time and waved. Madigan waved back. She knew she'd never have dinner at their table again, never hear Emma's bedtime prayers or Holden's gentle wisdom. That life, that beautiful, simple life she'd glimpsed, was lost forever. But she'd learned the lesson. Finally. Truly learned it. Real wealth wasn't in penthouses or board meetings. It was in kindness offered freely, in children who prayed for their enemies, in second chances earned through action, not words. She'd been a lost angel once. Maybe she still was. But for the first time in her life, Madigan Foster was finding her way home. Not to a place, to a purpose. And that was enough.